Crucible with my very good friend Gary Henson. Gary, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the February edition of the Coaching Crucible. It's great to be with you.
And we've got a great treat tonight, Gary, or this afternoon, or tonight, just depending on where you are all over this world. We've got people from a number of different countries here with us today, and people are coming in, get settled in, get a cup of coffee, cup of tea. Hopefully, wherever you are, the weather is bearable. I know that some things are going on all over the country. Weather-wise, we're basking in beautiful weather here in sunny Colorado, so I hope it's okay where you are. And we've got a really nice treat tonight. And we're doing a program on the power of neuroscience. And raise your hand, as you come in, raise your hand if you have studied neuroscience or you know a little bit about it. Just let me see a show of hands here and make sure that we've certainly being heard all over there.
And Drayton, while people are doing that, I'm going to tell you that I'm really excited to hear this first 20, 30-minute presentation this evening, because I'm not sure if I would raise my hand on that or not. So Coach Gary here is going to be open to learning and studying a lot of what the power of neuroscience is all about. So, wow, exciting.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent, Gary. And let's see a show of hands if you can hear us. I know we've got a number of people here. And Bruce says, I know as little as anyone. Thank you for your candor, Bruce. And just show of hands, again, people that have looked into neuroscience, that know a little bit about neuroscience. Just a show of hands as you come and get settled in here. Because we're going to do this program today is going to be about the fundamentals of neuroscience, really what it is, why it's important, and neuroscience really is a hot topic in the coaching world. If you haven't been exposed to it, you will certainly glean a lot from today's program, and it really is, for me, I started immersing myself, gosh, just about 3 or 4 months ago in earnest, and I'm fascinated by the prospects of using this in coaching and what it can do for ourselves personally and what it can do through the work that we do. So again, just a show of hands, people that are familiar with neuroscience. And as you do that and you hit your little raise your hand icon, if as we go through the program today, ask any questions that you want to. Use your question panel there and ask any questions that you would like to. And we'll be happy to answer those. We're going to go through the program, then we're going to do a Q&A session as well. So let's make sure that we get your questions answered. So again, show of hands. Okay, Ken says we're not very familiar with neuroscience. That's great that you're here then, Ken. We're glad to have you. And just make sure that everybody, if you want to ask a question, use the panel. We've got a lot of people clicking in now. And Glow says, I'm brand new to this. That's great. We'll cover the fundamentals with this. So again, welcome. This is Drayton Boylston, and you're at the Coaching Crucible. You see a slide on there about the power of neuroscience. That's what we're going to be covering today. And here's the beautiful thing. Gary and I are not doing it. We are turning it over to some experts. We have 2 great people from our Executive Coaching University, Jenna Forster and Greg Stiles. Jenna is our Director of Training, and Greg is our Director of Special Projects. And they will be handling the course today, and I'll turn it over to them in just a couple of minutes here. They are the experts in neuroscience, and just know that you have any questions or questions that pop up as you work through the program and things are percolating for you, just put them in there, ask us the questions, and we'll make sure that we get to them. So feel free to put them in right now and as we go through, and we'll do a Q&A session afterwards. And Jen and Greg, I'll feed you the questions as they pop up in the panel here. So again, Gary and I are here. It's Drayton Boylston and with Gary Henson. And at this point in time, we're a little bit after 2. Hopefully, Yeah, everybody's getting settled in. We've got dozens upon dozens of people. And by the way, folks, we're working our way very close to Gary, and this is amazing. I just checked the numbers today. We've got almost 1,000 people signed up for this program. So our appreciation to all of you who have been spreading the word and that have talked about the Crucible and what we're doing as a public service. We appreciate you sharing the link with your friends. Again, there's no cost, there's no pitch, there's none of that's going on or will ever go on as long as Gary and I are in control of all this. And please invite your friends and have them come be with us and talk about all the things that are important in the coaching world. So Gary, any thoughts before we jump right into things?
No, I'm sitting at the edge of my chair and I can't wait. Let's do it.
Hopefully it's a big chair and you're not going to fall off, Gary. So if you hear a big bang, that's what's going on. So welcome again, everyone.
Yeah, that'll be me.
Yeah, glad to have you here. And I'm going to turn it over right now, as I mentioned, to Jenna and Greg from our Executive Coaching University. They're the experts in neuroscience. Jenna has been with us for a number of years and is a very, very fine coach that blends the head and the heart as well or better than anyone I've ever met in our field. And she's just a wonderful human being with an incredible story. Her personal story is very, very inspiring and just a high-quality individual, as well as Greg Stiles. And Greg is he's one of the most direct and impactful and inspiring coaches I have been around, and has a way of wielding his velvet whip that is unlike any other coach I've ever met in our space. So you'll enjoy both of them. They have a lot to share with you today. They're very excited about this new avenue of neuroscience and what it can mean in our world as coaches and working with individuals. And first and foremost for ourselves. That's the way I'm approaching this today. I want to glean as much as I can to improve myself. So hopefully you guys are in a familiar space. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenna and Greg, and we'll see you guys on the backside when we do Q&A.
Sounds great, Drayton. Thank you. Greg, Gary, I promise that the falling off the chair won't hurt too badly. So thank you, gentlemen, for letting us come and share our information.
All right.
All right. I think it's important whenever we speak about something to understand a little bit of the why we want to speak about something and what brought us to this place. So we're just going to take a few minutes, not long at all, just to speak about that, and so that you can understand us, where we're coming from, and what brought us to this level of understanding around neuroscience. So I'm going to start with a little bit about my journey and how I became well-versed in neuroscience. And it all really began for me on a personal note. I became one of those statistics with the personal trauma of a diagnosis, something I wasn't expecting, something I didn't see coming, but something that changed my life forever. My health had shifted quickly and to a degree that I had to pay attention. And I say had because I'm not sure I would have if I wasn't offered this opportunity. Honestly, my ego was brought to such a low level that I began to think clearly. My main focus became around understanding myself, understanding my body, understanding my brain, understanding my mind, because those things are all different. And I had to understand it to a level that I was now able to heal myself. And then there was a natural connection for me in what I had learned and what I was practicing and how I was entering into my life on a new level and how I served my clients. I was now able to teach this to others and to really expand my method of coaching that created really strong, committed change for both myself and those that I served. I have deep gratitude for the journey that I've been on because it brought me to this place. And our journeys do that. Our journeys bring us to this place. When I think about our whys and our why of our team at the Executive Coaching University, and why we want to spend time speaking about this to all of you, is we're really, really strong around the idea of reminding all of you, our students, our clients, our colleagues, those that we spend time with, that not only do you have the skills to create success, but you're built to do this. we, the human race, really have forgotten how easy it can be. We're all here to build the solid foundation that's based on human behavior. If you think about executive coaching, executive coaches are dealing with behavior. So we want to deal with the building blocks of being human. How do we go from here to there, step by step? Because we're all built to make change. We all have the ability to do this. So we're going to spend some time today trying to strip away the clouds that may have been put upon the concepts of neuroscience, physiology, behavior, and change, so that we can really start to explore this with you. And we want to explore, how do we break the chains of our conditioning? How do we look at our habits and adjust our habits? How do we think about and express our emotional addictions? How does that affect us? Because we enter this world on an autopilot, and if we are entering on an autopilot and staying in this place, then we aren't to create a new future. So when we're speaking about creating a new future, we're really going to be looking at the nuts and bolts of us, of human beings, how we're wired, how we're firing things, and how we make adjustments to that to really create the change that we're looking for. So I have the privilege and honor of not doing this alone. I have an amazing team around me and with me, and one of those individuals is with you today, which I am very happy about. Greg Stiles is one of the best coaches I've ever met, and an even better individuals. So I want to introduce you, Greg. Come and say hello, and let's start this journey.
Thank you, Jenna. Boy, such high praise. Thank you very, very much. And Drayton and Gary, thank you very much for allowing Jenna and I this opportunity to share some time with you today. You know, I do want to throw out a bit of a caveat. This neuroscience and neuroscience itself is a vast ocean that is just continuing to be explored and discovered. And I certainly am not an expert yet. So today is going to be much more of probably a dip a toe in the water, and just an opportunity for us to, Jenna and I, to translate some of what we've learned with regards to neuroscience in a manner in which the people that are listening to the call can take it and utilize it in your everyday lives. That's what's really important to us. And you know, my why for arriving at this juncture is, Jenna, I think that you are a huge part of my why. I mean, you're my inspiration. You and I have talked numerous times about how we could bring our increasing understanding of the interaction between the mind, the body, and the brain to our other courses, and in some ways have begun to do that as well. But hearing your personal experience and how you've applied it to your life really has just inspired me to actually finally take action on a larger scale. So thanks to you, and thanks to Drayton for moving us in that direction as well. You know, the other reason that I've embarked upon this great adventure is I just wanted to improve results for my clients. And although my clients were experiencing the short and medium-term results that they desired, many of them were struggling with maintaining those gains over time. And that's really where I wanted them to be. I wanted them to be able to utilize our time together and not have to come back all the time to me. You know, it's an interesting profession, right? Being a coach, and it's all about excelling to the extent that your clients don't need you anymore. And so that was really the goal. And so I knew something was missing. When I had clients coming back to me, we would reinforce the things that we had learned. We would take a next step maybe, but we always had to reinforce those things. And I was frustrated. And so, like most people, I first attributed it to them. They've got to be doing something right. They're not following what we talked about, or they're not doing their homework, or whatever it was. But, you know, one of our team's core values is when we notice a disconnect, that we first look at ourselves. We are very oriented as an inside-out process, taking a look at self first and addressing any disconnects rather than taking the easy route of looking outside and pointing the finger. And so I began to assess my work and what I was providing them and what I wasn't. And again, this was a self-directed audit. My client seemed just fine with the status quo. But as I looked at my work, I realized that my coaching work did not incorporate much of the process of teaching my clients about how their mind, body, and brain interact to create the reality. Our work together provided them the structure within which to address many of their more immediate concerns, certainly, and even the intermediate concerns, but not really change the underlying physical architecture that would then support long-term change. And that's where neuroscience comes in. That's all about the underlying architecture, and that's where I want the change to be. Because if I can change the underlying architecture, if I can help people change their own underlying architecture, then they can maintain that change and that change process ad infinitum. So talking about and teaching the basic understandings emerging from neuroscience in a way in which my clients were not bogged down in the science or the biology itself became the challenge. Because most of my clients, when I start talking about dendrites and neurons and how myelin sheaths are created and that were basically built on electricity and all of that biological stuff, they just tune out. And so I had to find a way to begin to talk with them in a way that they understood. And our team is committed to the concept of not providing people fish. Our goal is always to teach people how to fish for themselves. And so that's how I arrived here. The main takeaway for today that I would love our listeners to leave with is that we are all born to create the results we desire through our biological system. As Jenna said very well, you are born to create the change that you want. You are born to move towards the desires that you have in your life. You are built as a biological machine to make these things happen. Your body, your mind, and brain operate within a continuous feedback loop. One is always affecting the other. Remember that. One is always affecting the other. Your body is always affecting how your brain and your mind are operating. Your mind is always affecting how your body is operating and how your brain is operating. And your brain is always having an influence on your body and on your mind. There's no way to separate those things. Thoughts created through the mind create physical networks within the physical brain. Even if those thoughts are not acted upon and cultivated, initially there is still a network ready to go. This network becomes stronger and more developed as you take that thought into action and then repeat, repeat, and repeat. You know, the only way towards sustained growth or change or success is through taking those thoughts you wish to act upon, developing the focus upon them to create an action plan, act, and then again repeat. And you'll notice that throughout today I say repeat very, very often. Repetition is the key to lasting change because that's how the brain works. It's all about reinforcing the underlying hardware, which is the biological piece, based upon the consistent use of certain software, which is where the mind comes in. So an example of this is the current Olympics, which I love watching, just enjoy it greatly. The other day I was watching the men's individual figure skating short program and listening more to the commentator's analysis, quite honestly, than really watching the athletes. And I tend to do that only because the commentators are typically ex-athletes. They're typically they've typically been to the Olympics and they really know their stuff. And what I love to hear about them is I love to hear from them the mental side of the sport and what's going on and how and what this person may need to do differently next time. Not necessarily just with regards to their form, but mentally what they need to do. And so for one athlete who had one of his very best routines that day, one of the commentators casually said, "He did really well today. But to achieve at the medal levels, he's just got to go home and practice more every day." Now, I thought this was amazing. She didn't say he needed a new coach, a new fitness routine, a new skating routine, or that he should hang up his skates because he will never rise to the level to which he aspires. She said he needed more practice, and she's absolutely correct. This competitor was 18 or 19 years old and already had thousands of hours of practice. I mean, made it to the Olympics. He's got to be pretty good. But the literature out there suggests that to reach a master level, say an Olympic medal level, one must deep practice almost 10,000 hours, which roughly approximates to about 10 years. So this competitor had just begun that cycle, and thus the commentator's assessment. It's that deep practice that leads us to the level of high performer in whatever arena we choose. And that's exactly what my clients were missing. They were missing the deep practice. Because so often they would do what we talked about. They would do the homework. They were even able to replicate it maybe over a few weeks' time. And yet often what happened is we would move on to different things. And we didn't always go back and reinforce and reinforce and reinforce and therefore strengthen and do the deep practice. That's what was missing. There's an interesting phenomenon happening out in the general public, and that is that there is a synthesis of the most current insights offered through neuroscience being collected by popular writers and distributed to the general public through such publications as Talent is Overrated, The Talent Code, and Bounce, to name a few. Again, those books are Talent is Overrated, The Talent Code, and Bounce. No longer is this knowledge being kept within the ivory towers of academia. These are exceptional writers that are beginning to synthesize this very complex understanding and knowledge and always changing landscape of neuroscience and the brain and disseminating it to all of us. It's all now becoming mainstream. These writings are also attacking the myth of natural talent. And even if you're not an athlete, the implications are tremendous. Natural athlete, natural leader, natural executive, natural fill in the blank. It doesn't hold water anymore because there really is not that much of a genetic component to these things. The component is having the thought, committing to the thought, and deep practicing those things. And this idea underpins what I'm talking about today and Jenna's talking about today completely. And the revelation is this, it's very simple, that everyone has the necessary biological hardware to excel at whatever we choose. You commit to that, you focus upon it, and then you practice, and you practice. And this is a concept that, taking back to my clients, they could get. They could understand. The majority of my clients are already high performers. They've been collegiate athletes. Some have been Olympic athletes. They're executives. They get it within one realm of their world. And yet they've not translated much of that to the other realm. And oftentimes that's all that's needed. In just a few moments, I'll be turning this back over to Jenna. And Jenna is going to guide us through a very basic mindfulness exercise. In all the courses we teach, Jen and I have made a commitment to not just providing talking head material for our clients, right? Knowledge is great, but you got to be able to present something to people so that they can take it and actually use it. Otherwise, it's just like going to class and going to a lecture. Unless you can put it into action, most people never put it into action. And so it's really important to us that we provide actionable exercises. So this exercise is a wonderful example of using the mind to create changes in the underlying biological system. It's using the software to create change on a hardware level. It's fascinating how the universe works. So just this morning, and this is true, just this morning, an article came across my desk, and it was a summary of a Brown University study that just recently was published that focused upon the effect of meditation on alpha brain waves. So the meditation process was very similar to what we will do today. And alpha brain waves simply help us filter sensory input. Basically, the greater alpha rhythms there are, the better our attention and our focus, which is obviously, for my clients, certainly, and for myself, something that needs to be improved almost daily with so many things taking our attention and vying for our time and the space between my ears. I have to get really good at focusing and maintaining my attention. The study found that engaging in meditation practice was associated with higher alpha rhythms. So therefore, meditation was linked to an increased ability to better focus our attention and our thoughts. Very important, not only for us individually as coaches, but also for every single one of our clients. So please make sure that you take this mindfulness exercise and use it every day. Just 10 minutes at first, for the next 30 days. Commit to that. Do your best to commit to that. 10 minutes a day, 30 days. Not only have engaging in mindfulness exercises like this one been shown to have an effect on alpha waves, like I just talked about, but also real physical health benefits such as lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, increase in autoimmune cell activity, and decrease in cortisol levels, which are associated with high stress and exceptionally tough on the body. So remember, it takes practice, practice, practice to affect change at the deep biological level that we're looking for. So don't shortchange yourself. Practice this mindfulness technique 10 minutes a day for the next 30 days. If you do, I know you will begin to notice significant positive effects. Take this example, take this exercise as your first introduction to the reality of neuroscience and what it actually says about our daily living and how you can translate it into not only your daily living, but those around you. Jenna, I'm going to turn it over to you for some higher level perspectives and, of course, moving on to that mindfulness exercise.
Absolutely. Thanks, Greg. I love what you said, and what really stands out for me is about the whole piece about biologically driven. And if I think about that, the way I would state that is the choices we make are biologically driven. We spend so much time talking about willpower and setting goals, and coming from this understanding of if we just do it, then we'll get there, that idea. But what we want to do is we want to expand that thinking. That thinking's not incorrect. Let's expand it so that we first and our clients and our colleagues, those individuals that we interact with, can have a deeper level understanding of that. What does that actually mean? So I want to start with that thought of the choices we make are biologically driven. And then I'm going to talk about the concept of autopilot and what's happening with us on a day-to-day basis. And if we can understand that, how do we make shifts? So that's really where we're going to go today and talk about. So I want to start with the concept of personality. Now this may be something that you know a lot about, you may know a little about, you may be in the middle. But when I talk about personality, what I'm referring to is personal reality. Because our personality has a direct effect on our personal reality. It actually creates our personal reality. We all see the world through our own unique lens, and our lens is based on our perceptions. So we will see things differently, each of us, based on our perceptions. Our perceptions are based on our habits, our beliefs, attitudes, actions, behaviors, and experiences that we have. So when we can really understand that and say, okay, the actions that I'm taking and the behaviors that I'm exhibiting are all based on my perception, which is based on my personal reality, which is based on my personality. What that tells me is, okay, I can take back the driver's seat, and we're going to talk today about how do we move away from that, and how do we really take control of that. Because as we move through our lives, we move through our lives both consciously and unconsciously. And you can think about that. If you think about your day, you get up every morning. Most of us have the same basic routine and rhythm to our morning. We get ready the same way. Some of us interact with the same people every day. Most of us exhibit the same basic behavior every day. Therefore, we create the same experiences every day. In fact, according to the latest studies, we, human beings, work unconsciously, which is based on what we've memorized and our conditioning, 95% of the time. 95% of our day is based on our unconscious programming. We work consciously, which means from the present mind, being conscious, 5% of the time. We become reliant on our experiences, and our mind by nature is repetitive. If you want to put some figures to that, we have approximately 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. 90% of those thoughts are the same ones you had yesterday. 70 to 75% of those thoughts are negative. most of our unconscious action, that 95% of the time, is taken to emotionally reinforce our personality. Why? Because we have an innate need to feel more of the same way we have in the past. It's safe. It's comfortable. We know what to expect. We know how to quote-unquote deal with it. What is really happening is our story, the stories you create, that personal reality that you create, the stories you create the questions that you pose. The questions that you ask create the thoughts that you have. The thoughts that you have create the experiences that you have. The experiences that you have create the choices that you make. The choices that you make create the questions that you have. The questions that you have create the thoughts that you have, so on and so forth. There is a looping that's happening for us that is mostly unconscious. Until we can bring that looping to light, it is very difficult to make those changes based on willpower or setting a goal. Human beings are based and act on their conditioning. We become addicted to our emotions, and our emotions hold us to where we currently are. We need to understand that we will never create a new future holding on to the emotions of the past. And why all this talk about emotions? Emotions are chemicals. Emotions cause chemical releases into your body. Emotions connect your body and your brain. You have an experience, it fires in your brain, it attaches to an emotion, the emotion sends chemicals into your body takes action. Emotions are how we connect our brain to our body. So when we're talking about emotions, we're talking about chemical releases. In order to be conscious in our day-to-day lives, it demands a slowing down and a paying attention, which is a large part what coaching is. Because to be unconscious in our lives really means to act out the conditioning of our mind. So when we have the power of understanding that our condition, our personal reality is based on conditions of the mind, which is based on reinforcing the same emotional experiences of the past, we can then take this heavy cloud of I'm not good enough, I can't achieve, I can't, because yes, we can. What's important to understand is it's a wiring. It is a biological wiring that's happening for us. And the choices we make are biologically driven. As Greg said, there is a direct connection. We talk about the brain, we talk about the mind, we talk about the body. The brain and the mind are different. The mind is the brain in action. I'll say it again, the mind is the brain in action. When we can teach how the brain works and how the brain and the body are connected and how all of that biological system is running, we can then start to develop the understanding of how to change our future. And it is simply about wiring and firing. Your brain is electrical. So when we talk about neuroscience, we're talking about giving the understanding to individuals how the brain wires and fires. How, like Greg says, repeating something over and over and over again builds strength in that connection. Then we start to get a deep level understanding of behavior. How we're perceiving our realities, all of our emotional attitudes, they're not only based on how we're perceiving our reality, which is based on how we're wired, but they're also an addiction. How much are we addicted to how we want to feel? And how we want to feel is not necessarily how we state we want to feel. Our body is addicted to the same chemical releases we've had in the past. So what we state may not be how our body and our mind is connected currently, and it may not be how we're running. Greg is speaking about repeating, repeating, repeating. That's why that piece is so huge. When we have a thought, we fire in our brain. That releases an emotion into our body. If we repeat and repeat and repeat, we strengthen that. This part of the knowledge is necessary to understand, and we're going to go deeper into it the next time we speak with you. But the understanding of where we are right now and how we move into a new reality is what we're talking about when we talk about neuroscience. And when we bring it into our method of coaching, it's very powerful. So I want you to experience some of this. Greg was speaking about an exercise, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to spend just a few minutes, and Greg is talking about doing it 10 minutes a day. I would recommend that you break that down and do this exercise we're going to do multiple times a day to add up to the 10 minutes. As you strengthen that, you can increase the time, and then you can get to that 10-minute marker that Greg's speaking about. So this is really about balancing out our autonomic nervous system. Our autonomic nervous system, the firing in our body, is based on two sides of our nervous system. One is the sympathetic nervous system. This is our fight or flight. This is where our body gets geared, the blood flow increases, sometimes the blood flow goes down, we have more oxygen pumping into our body, we're ready. We're ready to fight this, or we're ready to run. This is based on fear, this is based on stress. In our societies, most people are running the bulk of their time in their sympathetic nervous system. Why? Because we're overworked, we're stressed, we're fielding hundreds upon hundreds of messages in a day. There's a high level of burnout, our stress levels are high. What all of this causes is fear-based decision making. When we are moving from a place of our sympathetic nervous system, we are making fear-based decisions. The other side of our nervous system is called the parasympathetic nervous system. This is also known as the rest digest. This is where our body is able to repair. When we spend time on the parasympathetic side, we are in rest mode. We are able to repair. Things happen like when we eat food and we are in a calm state, our body is actually able to pull the nutrients out of the food and into our body. Our body is then able to repair because we are in a calm state. Now, both of these sides are extreme. It's not about being in one or the other. It's about creating a balance of the two. Because how our nervous system runs has a direct effect to the health of your body, which has a direct effect to the thoughts that you have, which have a direct effect to the behaviors you exhibit. So the power of breathing is enormous, and it's something that's overlooked. Most people say, yeah, I understand, I get meditation, I know I should do this, I don't have time. You have to start with slowing down. That allows your body, your chemical need, the addictions of the chemical releases to slow down to such a level that your brain can get involved. Because most people that are high performers, high level, if they aren't working on this stuff, their bodies are running the show because they're addicted to the chemical release that's in their body. So I'm going to walk you through this. I'm going to ask all of you, put your pens down, step away from your desk, push away your chair from your desk. If you have any noise makers, your emails are going off, your phone's going off, if you could shut that down for 1 minute. Step away if you're standing at a desk. Step away from your desk. And let's just connect in for a few minutes. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Feet are firmly planted on the floor. If you're a visual individual, picture roots coming out of your feet into the floor. Very, very grounding. Picture your spine like a strong pole running all the way through your body. Strong, able, capable body. Eyes are closed. We're going to take you through a process of a 6-count breathing. So how it's going to look is you're going to breathe in for the count of 6, hold it for the count of 2, and breathe out for the count of 6. I'm going to count for you, and I'm going to increase the pace initially, and then I'm going to slow it down. We're balancing out our nervous system. So here we go. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you wish to continue doing this, feel free. This is something to be practiced on a continuous basis before you're going into a meeting, before you have a conference call, before you have a conversation that may be a challenging conversation or non-challenging conversation. Center yourself, balance out your nervous system so that your addictions are not running your behavior. So Drayton and Gary, that's our presentation for today. Let's open it up for some questions, or if either of you have any add-tos.
I'm so mellow at this moment, Jenna. I'm in a good place.
You just woke me up, Drayton. Could you mute yourself?
Gary's in Blissville, so. Well, you know, you guys did an awesome job with this, and we have a ton of questions. I'll just give a little observation, and maybe Gary would like to jump in as well before we get to everybody's questions. What I know is that we have to embrace this, and we have to work with our clients to do this. I started out meditating years ago, and really any work that I do one-on-one with my clients has to involve meditation, and we call it just going quiet. And that's really kind of, I'm a neophyte at this, unlike the two of you, yet I know the importance of that and helping people to slow down and be mindful, and just starting out with that meditative piece, as Jenna took us through that exercise, on a daily basis can do, I will personally attest to, can do amazing things for you. Deepak Chopra says every time you go into the silence, you bring some of it back, and I truly believe that. And I think it's something that we're just at the top of this wave is starting to build, and as Greg said, this will keep going on forever. We're just getting our toe in the water with this right now, but it's so important for us to research this more, to understand more, and to be ahead of our clients so that we can bring this to them so they can bring it into their world, and we can start this viral effect of positive change. Gary, what are your thoughts?
And I'd like to remind both of you, or I'd like to thank both of you for reminding me about slowing it down. One of my coaches and mentors, Steve Chandler, speaks of slowing things down. Jenny, you brought this back, that and reminded me that he takes an hour of his day every day, closes his eyes, meditates the whole day the way he wants it to go, and has it all kind of outlined at the beginning of the day. So therefore, as he goes through his day, he doesn't get distracted by all these outside influences and so on and so forth. And I remember him speaking a lot about that, slow everything way down. And I think a great beginning to introducing us to something I think is very.
Yeah, Gary, we're getting some breakup on your end. Yeah, just echoing what Gary said. Yeah, it's so important to set that intention at the start of the day and do that before you go into the silence. And repetition, as Greg was saying, the 10,000 hours and the just the practice around these things. It truly is a practice, and it goes deeper and deeper as you get into it more. So let's jump into some of the questions. So one of the first questions, Jen and Greg, you can just decide which one wants to jump in and take this. Is this like neuro-linguistic programming?
Greg, you want it, or do you want me to speak to that?
Jen, I think we can tag team. You know, I'll be totally honest. I have read a book on neuro-linguistic programming. I have not practiced neuro-linguistic programming. So I would feel a bit out of my league to say it is like it or it is not. Although I must say that what I have read about neuro-linguistic programming, there's got to be a biological change. There's got to be a biological connection. We're biological beings. If there is not a change on the biological level of our brains, then there is no change in our behavior. That's the bottom line. And whether you call it neuro-linguistic programming, or you call it hypnosis, or you call it whatever you want to call it, there has to be some type of basic cellular change. And so many of the techniques, I'm a psychotherapist as well, many of the techniques that I've used in my therapy practice really are very much in tune with repeating things and repetition and going over things and looking at things in a different frame and moving things from one frame to another, and yet continually building and building and building that very, very strong connection. You know, Jen and I talk about it very similarly to if you think about out here in beautiful Colorado, wherever you are, of a virgin snowfield, snow all over the place, no tracks at all. That's kind of your brain at one point. And then at some point, someone went through with some cross-country skis and they made some tracks. And then someone followed those same tracks, and another person followed them, and they got deeper and deeper and deeper. That's essentially what happens with many of our thoughts and our behaviors. And the deeper those tracks get, in reality, it's actually the thicker the neurons and the thicker the trunk, almost like the trunk of a tree. The thicker that trunk gets, the faster the electricity moves through, and the thicker that trunk gets, which means that our minds go quicker through that trunk than the other trunk. And so we begin to change our behavior that way. And that's the only way it changes. If you want to change from behavior A to behavior B, you've got to create that trunk for behavior B. You've got to repeat behavior B, and eventually that trunk gets thicker than behavior A, and that's where your behavior begins to go. Jenna, what would you add?
Jenna, you with us?
You with us, Jenna?
I'm muted.
I was talking to myself.
Just keep repeating that, Jenna, over and over.
Repeat. Yeah. No, I just a fantastic job, Greg. Not much I can add to that. NLP is very strong and in changing behavior, and this is just an add to. The more we can work with things at a cellular level, as you said, Greg, the more we can build those tracks in the snow, make sure they're the right tracks in the snow, and then make them very strong with that continuous momentum over them, the more our behavior will adjust to and align with who we are.
We've got another good question here from Denise. Can you say more about the difference between the mind and the brain?
So the mind is, as I said, the brain in action. And the brain is, as Greg said, it's the hardware. So it's the biological form in our body. The mind, I would equate more as that brain and the firing that's happening in that brain. So you've had an experience. The experience creates a thought, which creates an electrical current in your brain. That creates certain releases emotionally, and it also connects to a story that we may have about it in the past. And that fires, and then that becomes an action, and the action is our mind. So Greg, add to that, maybe explain that in a little bit clearer fashion for me.
Well, I think that Denise brings up a great question, and of course it's a question that has been asked throughout ages. There have been many philosophers who have talked about what is the mind and what is the brain. When I talk about the mind and the brain, Jenna, I would just parrot what you said, really, and that is that for me the brain is the underlying biological hardware that is made up of neurons and blood and guts. It's the blood and guts of what we are. It's the hardware. And the mind really is, and again, you can talk to many, many different people and they will give you a very, very different sense of what the mind is. But for me, the mind is really that translator, that transition piece that helps us move from body to the environment. It helps us interface. It's that interface piece for me that allows us to translate many of the biological processes that are occurring into the environment in which we find ourselves. But again, that is a heck of a question and a huge question, and one that I think that you would ask many, many, many people much, much more intelligent than I, and you would get a gazillion different answers.
Okay, here's another one. What's deep practice?
Oh, I love that. That's a fantastic question. So for the person that asked the deep practice question, and anyone that wants to get a better sense of it, I will say a little bit about it, but I want to refer you to a couple books. The first one is The Talent Code that I referenced. That is by Daniel Coyle, C-O-Y-L-E. The other one is also Bounce by Matthew Syed, which I referenced as well, Bounce. But the better one, and the one that really delves into it, and I think both of those books will refer to this book, is that The Talent is Overrated book. Talent Overrated really went into this concept of why are some people seemingly just talented and just naturally so much better than everybody else. And what they found was that they would go to a tennis camp in Russia that turned out all of these amazing tennis pros, and it was just one tennis camp in Russia that seemed to do this. They went to a symphonic development camp up in back east that developed some of the world's most accomplished musicians. And what they found was not a natural talent bed. There really wasn't much separating the kids that went to those areas socioeconomically, intellect, IQs, any of that. What it was the way that those programs developed the children and developed their skills, and it was through this deep practice process. Deep practice is, for instance, so if you were learning how to play tennis, the first thing that you would do at one of these camps, and I think it was called Spartak in Russia, is they would have the children all line up, and one thing they would do is they would watch older children swing the racket. But they wouldn't have a racket of their own. They would just mimic that process, just mimic those movements. And they would do it over and over and over and over and over again. They would do it for hours upon hours before they even got a racket in their hand. That's deep practice. That is creating a neural network that is made up of all of these different movements to such an extent that all you're doing is you're creating a huge trunk and a huge trunk and a huge trunk. And on that trunk, you're just creating branches that go everywhere. And that's that deep practice concept, is focus on one thing and do it over and over and over and over again, and then you move on to the next thing. But what you'll find is all of these places, they'll have their basic programs. They all incorporate the same basic processes. They all do the same thing. They do deep practice, as opposed to maybe practicing for a half an hour on something at a very superficial level. The other thing, and I'll throw this out again really fast, one of the amazing things that they did at this music camp is that they would actually have students play the piece backward, because that meant that the students had to think so much and concentrate so much that they would play it backward exceptionally slowly, and then they would put it all together. And so again, it's that deep practice. It's taking chunks and it's chunking it down, just like Jenna did with my recommendation of 10 minutes. That was fantastic. She did a great job of deep practicing that process. Take it for, 30 seconds and practice, and then another 30 seconds and another 30 seconds. And if you do that over a day and do it maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 times, you're going to have more than 10 minutes anyway. And that's the concept of deep practice. Jenna, anything to add? I hope I explained that well.
No, great job. For me, it's about strengthening. So deep practice is about repetition, and it's doing things in a strategic manner so that you can build strength in. So if we're talking about the tracks in the snow, and if an individual goes and makes new tracks in the snow, and they go the same way, making the same tracks, and they go over and over and over and over, and their method is very strategic in how they move their feet and how they move forward, those tracks become very deep and very strong. Your skis won't come out of them because there's strength in them. So making deeper and deeper and deeper tracks. And you do that through repetition. You do that by strengthening the neurological connections in your brain. There actually is a myelin sheath that we'll get into in a next call or so, and that is wrapping insulation tape around your neurological connections, which makes it stronger, sturdier, faster connections, so that is where the power is.
Hey, Drayton, before we nod off, because I know we're going to have to cut out real quick, but I want to give a very quick example that I think everyone on this call can understand. And an example of deep practice is your relationship and your response to your email coming through on your phone. When you hear that little chirp or you hear that ring, that is deep practice, because you probably had that happen thousands of times and don't even think about it anymore. And actually what's happened is that you've created such a habit around that, that myelin sheath is so thick that it's probably hard for you not to attune to it. That is deep practice.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, so much information here. And Ron, you've got some great questions here. Diamond, you've got some great questions. And I wanted to just kind of wrap this up with a great observation from Tim. And Tim said, and I know all of us almost assume this is forward, and I just want to get it out there. Tim was talking about this being focused today more of a materialistic concept, the relationship between brain and mind, and that we're, it's only kind of that mechanized machine piece of it, but we are also spiritual beings. And I know all of us feel this at such a deep level. I just wanted to get it out there that indeed, yes, this is kind of the mechanics of how you do certain things to affect positive change. And we are all certainly spiritual beings having this humanistic, mechanical experience in some ways as well. So great observations, great questions. And as we carry this forward into the Crucible playback, the recording page, please keep the questions coming. Jenna and Greg will be answering things over there as well. And I know we're at the top of the hour. Gary, I wanted to bring it back to you because Gary's got a special gift for all of you. And everyone that started this call is still with us, and we thank you so much for being here. And Gary has a little something that he'd like to offer to everyone, and we're going to do this from time to time. We want to give you as many resources as we can to help you as you work with other people. So Gary, you want to talk about that for a minute?
Yes, and Drayton, I'll be brief. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Yep. You're good.
I'll be brief. Get right to the point. As Drayton and I promised, we're going to from time to time offer some free gifts to people, and our goal is to help you out. As you know, this is a no sales zone. This is our way of giving back to the community, and one of the things that Drayton and I talked about was offering a product that's on our website for sale for $300. It's called Get Clients in the Now Economy. Get Clients in the Now Economy. It is a complete process along with some, it's three recordings and I think it's 18 pages of material of how to sit in front of a potential client, coach them through the process that eventually has them become a client. It also gives you where to find the clients, where to find potential clients, how to set the appointment. It's all in one package. And so Drayton's going to post that on the Coaching Crucible site along with the recording of this call, and also put a code in there so that when you go ahead and fill out the information, just put your name and email address in there, whatever, so we can send it to you, and you'll get a code. And just do not, I repeat, do not put your credit card information in there. Just put look for the area that says coupon code, and we'll give you the coupon code to get this product absolutely free. And it's our way of saying thanks to those who have stuck around to hear the end of the call and are participating from month to month on these really important and very valuable calls. Back to you, Mr. Boston.
Yeah, Gary, well done. And again, as Gary said, we'll put it on the Crucible playback page. There will be the code in there, and if you need anything, just drop some comments there. Our thanks to Jen and Greg. You guys did an awesome job with this. I know it's a passion play for the two of you, and hopefully this helped a lot of you who listened to this today. And go out and practice. Become proficient. Make it very consistent, a consistent part of your day. And I know it's been a game changer for me in terms of embracing some of these things, and has brought a level of peace that I've never had in my life before. So thanks for all that you do in serving others through coaching. And if we may be of service, let us know. And until next time, everybody take good care, and we'll see you this time next month.